All right, prepare for a mind-bending journey with Daniel Harari, founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, as he pulls back the curtain on UFO truth. Fresh from Contact in the Desert 2025, Dan reveals explosive details about a game-changing disclosure documentary, the launch of the WOW Signal news service, and his sci-fi novel After They Came, now an audiobook. From his lifelong paranormal encounters detailed in My Paranormal Life to his insider take on Hollywood's role in the global disclosure movement, Dan's story is a cosmic collision of entertainment and extraterrestrial reality. Will 2025 be the year the truth breaks free? Daniel was born and raised just outside of Asbury Park, New Jersey, and is a man of many talents. While best known for his 40-plus years of work in Hollywood as an entertainment industry publicist and owner of the boutique Asbury PR agency in Beverly Hills, he's also the author of 4 books. In addition, he was a professional drummer as a youngster and performed stand-up comedy at LA's top comedy houses during the late 90s, early 2000s, and he's been a UFO experiencer. He's also a leading disclosure activist. As founder and chairman of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, launched in 2023, he unites top UAP researchers with Hollywood storytellers to amplify the truth about extraterrestrial presence. He's a key figure at Contact in the Desert, and in 2025, he premiered the HDA's documentary Inside Hollywood, Aliens, UFOs, and the Quest for Disclosure. And again, he recently launched the WOW Signal news service, a trusted platform for UAP and disclosure news. His books include After They Came, a sci-fi novel now available as an audiobook, and My Paranormal Life, chronicling his personal encounters with spirits, telepathy, and UFOs. Daniel, welcome back to Strange Planet. How are you?
Boy, I'm tired just listening to that intro. I don't know how I did all those things, Richard.
You should just put your feet up and rest for a moment.
I know. I
So,
should.
let's talk about the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and we'll get into the documentary as well. But
Sure.
what was the moment you realized Hollywood needed to take disclosure seriously, and how is the HDA making that happen?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me back on again. 2 years ago now, really, 2 years ago, pretty much exactly, I met Stephen Bassett at a UFO show up in San Francisco called the UFO Con. And my book, After They Came, over here, had just been published, now on audiobook, like you just said. And my book had just come out, so I started promoting my book at Alien Con and UFO Con and MUFON events and various events. I met Stephen Bassett 2 years ago. We became friendly. He lives in Washington, D.C. I live in L.A. So 2 years ago, he came out to L.A. We had a very long lunch. He told me his life story. You know, and Richard, you know this. Stephen was the first lobbyist in Washington, D.C. in 1996 to lobby for the end of what he termed, he told me that he created the term the truth embargo, which I think is a hell of a great term. And he's been working for 29 years. Next year will be 30 years that he's been advocating for disclosure, working through Congress and legislation. And he works closely with Danny Sheehan and others in Washington. So he's a disclosure guy. I've been, like you said, I've been a Hollywood publicist. This year is 41 years. So Stephen and I had a long lunch 2 years ago in Hollywood, and he told me his life story. I told him mine, and then he said to me, "Dan, what can we do together?" So Richard, it was one of those, it was one of those light bulb moments that you have in life. I just looked up at the ceiling, and I thought, he's disclosure, I'm Hollywood. Those are pretty powerful words. And I just looked at him and I said, we're going to create the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. It was an inspired moment in my life, and I've had a few of them, as are chronicled in my book called My Paranormal Life. So he said, yeah, that's it. That's right. That's exactly right. So we shook hands, and we gave birth to Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Now, at the time, it was 3 words. That's all we had. Hollywood Disclosure was 3 words. Well, we went to Contact in the Desert 2023, exactly 2 years ago, and we met George Norrie and Nick Pope and Richard Dolan and Ron James and Ron Janix and Paul Hynek and Katie Page and so many of the names in ufology. And we told them what our plan was. In 201, Richard, every single person, starting with George Noory, he was actually the first one. And everyone said, "Oh, I want to be a member. I want to be part of that. I want to be that." Well, we didn't even know what that was. We had three words. We just literally had three words. So, long story short is after contact that year, we huddled with my daughter. Now, my daughter Anjali is a graphic artist and a branding marketing person. She created our logo. Let's see if I can see it
Yep,
here.
we can see that.
I,
Yep,
I wore this shirt for you today, Eric.
I
There you
appreciate
go.
that.
I can never see it.
And it's also on the desk there. Yeah.
Okay, right, there we go. So she created our logo and our website and our socials and all that. So we put together Stephen's contacts and colleagues and peers and friends and mine to create, and the website is HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. Last year, we became a 501c3 nonprofit. Okay, so what is our mission statement? Our mission statement is to help inspire and nurture the next era of feature films, TV shows, and documentaries. So they are based or inspired by real life experiences of real life people. That's our mandate. We have about 210 members, Richard, today. Half of them, and we have members all over the world. Half of them are UAP or ET experiencers, researchers, or disclosure advocates like Stephen Bassett. The other half are Hollywood writers, producers, directors, performers, content creators. And when I say Hollywood, it's a sexy term. It really means the global entertainment industry.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean Hollywood the town or just the movie studios.
Right.
So to date, there have been several. Well, our documentary just came out Monday this week. We have a lot of documentary filmmakers, our members. So let's say you're working on a documentary about women who have been abducted, perhaps, and have been given birth to hybrid children. Well, I personally know three women who are dear friends of mine, and that's who that has happened to. So through the HDA, a documentary filmmaker can. One of our board members, his name is Sean West. He's a talent agent. He said, "Dan, the HDA website is like a casting director's dream, right? There are 210 people up there. In fact, Richard, you should be a member. All I need is your bio and your photo, man. I'll just put you right up there right away."
All right.
But
Done.
if you are a documentary filmmaker and you need people who have experienced abductions or they've been beamed up through the walls of their bedrooms or they've been experimented on, anything within that paranormal genre, well, we have all kinds of dozens of experiencers are members of our group. So it's sort of a casting director's dream if you want to make a documentary or a TV series. On the feature film side, that's a lot harder. In fact, I have a screenplay for my book After They Came that I'm shopping around now this summer to Hollywood producers. That's tough. That's hard to do. But we are a networking platform. We're open to new members all the time, and we're open to people who have interesting stories on the one hand, or are hard. I mean, Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, Paul Hynek. I mean, Whitley Strieber, Travis Walton. The list is endless of who our members are. Shirley MacLaine, Thomas Jane, the movie star. And then on the other side are people who have the ability to bring content to any kind of screen. And it's an interesting group. We're only, less than 2 years old, really. And I'm very proud of us. I think we've accomplished a great deal.
This is a huge topic, and I mean, I've dedicated entire episodes to it, but just kind of as a tease, and maybe at some point we can, do another episode, a full episode on this, but just in terms of, who is behind the scenes shaping the narrative of the UFO reality, UFO ET reality. I mean, we know that the military, the Pentagon was involved, and CIA and others have been involved previously in trying to shape the narrative to their agenda. Is this maybe an attempt to push back and change that narrative?
That's an interesting question. And the adjacent part of your question is what does Steven Spielberg know, right? Okay, so Steven Spielberg, is of course is he's our guru. He's our Hollywood guru. I actually met him in 2010. I spent an afternoon with him. Very lovely guy. He's the guru as far as presenting films and TV series that seem to be inspired by true events. I've heard that Close Encounters of the Third Kind was an amalgam of some real life events. For Close Encounters, his scientific advisor, we all know, is Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who actually appeared at the end of that film. And Steven's next film comes out next year. Steven, like I know him. Steven's next, I met him once. Steven's next film comes out next year. It's called Disclosure. Well, when my partner, Steve Bassett, heard that Steven Spielberg's next film was called Disclosure, I was with him. He was like, really? He was like literally jumping up and down like a kid in a toy store. So Steven is at the forefront of, let's call the mainstream Hollywood media, right? J.J. Abrams has done projects in this field. Obviously, M. Night Shyamalan's movie Signs, which I absolutely love that movie. Jerry Bruckheimer, very, very, very successful producer. He did all the Top Gun movies. He's working on a new movie called The Dish, and David Grush is his advisor. How about that?
Wow.
So next year, Spielberg has Disclosure, and Jerry Bruckheimer has a movie advised by David Grush. Those are both of them, Richard, obviously could be game changers. We don't know what they're top secret. We don't know what the storylines are, but those could really propel things forward. As far as the HDA goes, we're a little baby. We're just learning to crawl. I would say the focus of our efforts so far have definitely been on the documentary side. For example, Ron James is a good friend of mine. Ron James has a new movie called Accidental Truth Next, coming out in the fall. He interviews. He became very good friends with Thomas Jane, the movie star, through our HDA group. They've been collaborating on quite a few projects lately. Other documentary filmmakers in our group have interviewed other members of our group. Bob Salas is a member of our group. Bob Salas just wrote a rebuttal to the Wall Street Journal article. You know about that article. That caused a lot of waves around here.
Just if you could just recap that. No, I'm not familiar with the intimate details of it. I've had Bob on recently, I guess in the last couple of months, talking about nukes and UFOs.
Right. I think it was May. Is it May or June? I think it was maybe June 5th. Yeah, June 5th, just like 2 weeks ago, June 5th. The Wall Street Journal wrote an article that basically said the Pentagon, for years and years and years, has had a disinformation campaign to basically gaslight us. So many of our quote unquote UFO experiences, UAP experiences, have been military, top secret military operations. Well, you know the Bob Salas story.
Yes.
In 1967, he was in, is it
Malmstrom.
Malmstrom? I
Yeah.
always say that word wrong. And a giant orange craft, light beam craft, something hovered above his installation and turned off 10 ICBM
Yes.
nuclear missiles. And he was there. He was there. He experienced this happening. So, Richard, 2 weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal said it was a top secret military operation where they built this enormous, like, laser beam light on an enormous platform, and they aimed it above Malmstrom Air Force Base just as a test to see what would happen. So Bob Salas wrote back to the Wall Street Journal, and he said, "This is a fantasy. That's not what happened at all." He goes, "Where'd you come up with that?" So unfortunately, even in 2025, after David Grush and Lou Elizondo and then Dr. Eric Davis a month ago told Anna Paluna, Representative Anna Paluna, Luna, whatever her name is, I always forget her name, in Congress, that there were 4 different races of extraterrestrials. After all this happening in Congress, and the New York Times, obviously, and the release of the Navy videos, the mainstream press is still, no, 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 not real, not extraterrestrial. All can be explained, military, military. So they're gaslighting us. They're gaslighting the world. And our little group, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, we're trying to get real stories out that perhaps, like are under, look, we're not Steven Spielberg. We're little babies, but maybe we can get out some documentaries out there that say, hey, these are real experiences. These things really happen, and these are credible people. I'm very good friends with many, many, many people now because of the HDA, and I know these people well. These people are not lying. I know 3 women who had hybrid children, and they cry when they tell me the stories. They cry. Now, I don't think that's BS. I know these people. I have a friend who's has had a relationship with Pleiadians for 60 years. He started at the age of 5, and every few years they take him on board and they teach him things. His name is Mark. He lives in the Bay Area. He's a very, very successful businessman. He's writing a book about his Pleiadian interactions, his lifelong, he's about 63 now.
Mm-hmm.
So we are trying to get out compelling stories under the radar, perhaps. And then, listen, I've invited Steven Spielberg into our group, and his PR people said, thank you, he wishes you well, but he can't join. Well, okay, that's too bad.
All right, so that brings us then to Inside Hollywood, Aliens, UFOs, and the Quest for Disclosure. I believe it premiered at Contact in the Desert 2025, and it was just released a few days ago, right? Monday.
That's exactly right. So I executive produced this documentary. One of our members is a very gifted documentary filmmaker named Jeremy Norrie, Norrie, no relation to George Norrie. And he and I became friends, and we put our heads together, and we said, what if we created a little documentary that essentially chronicles what the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is about, who are our members, what is our mandate, and what can Hollywood do to help advance the disclosure movement forward. That was the goal. We started shooting at Conscious Life Expo. Are you familiar?
Yeah, oh, yes.
Familiar.
Yes.
We shot at Conscious Life Expo in February in LA, and it was sort of, Richard, it was sort of guerrilla filmmaking, and there we interviewed Danny Sheehan at length, and Jimmy Church, and Britt Elders, and Linda Moulton Howe, and Serena Wright Taylor, and a number of other people, and we were asking them essentially, how do you think Hollywood has handled the UAP ET issue historically? And how do you think perhaps Hollywood can help us move the disclosure movement forward? Those were the premises.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got some very interesting feedback. Then, of course, over the months, we got Stephen Bassett, of course, my partner. I'm in it. Ron James, the head of MUFON TV and filmmaker, he's in it. Thomas Jane, the movie star, he has very strong opinions about the disclosure, how the government keeps pulling the wool over our eyes. He had a personal experience 15 years ago. Thomas Jane, look him up. The Punisher, The Expanse. He's a very popular, lovely guy. He's become a good friend of mine. He had a personal experience 15 years ago in his home in LA that he has never revealed exactly what happened, but he said it was so profound, it was life-changing. Something happened in his living room when he was asleep 15 years ago. He's been trying to explain it ever since. So he has very, very powerful thoughts about ET, NHI, things that we were not being told. He's working on a book called A Human's Guide to Visiting Aliens, and I believe he's going to self-publish that in the fall. Ron Janix, the owner of Contact in the Desert, we interviewed him at length. So it's called, like you said, Inside Hollywood, Aliens, UFOs, and the Quest for Disclosure. I premiered it at Contact in the Desert the last day there, June 2nd. We had about 50 people there in the audience. Most of them were HDA members. And this week, it is now on. If you want to see it, go to YouTube and then type in JPDA period Horton, Horton Films. J. period Horton Films. He is one of the producers of the film. He's hosting our film. It's for free for maybe a month or two, and then we're trying to sell it to Netflix or Amazon or others.
Fantastic. And how are you hoping that this is going to impact the narrative? How is it going to shift the public conversation around disclosure? How do you hope it will?
That's a great question. Really, truly a great question. My goal for HDA is to keep building up our membership. Okay, so 210, we have 210. Now, that's not a lot of people, but for a little grassroots thing that Stephen and I created 2 years ago, that's pretty good, I think. We want to add a lot of people, and then we want to have more. Let's focus for now on documentaries. The tipping point, Richard, for us would be that the HDA is generating and approving. In feature films at the end, the American Humane Society. They say, no animals were harmed in the making. We're going to have no aliens were harmed in the making of this film, the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. We want to. The tipping point would be when Hollywood proper, when the studios and the networks and Hollywood talent agencies realize we are the Hollywood UFO group in their backyard, and perhaps they could come to us with ideas or people to help research. I mean, we have Richard Dolan. Richard Dolan is one of our members. Mr. Research, right?
Yeah.
So we want to become an asset to Hollywood proper. There could be a day when M. Night Shyamalan needs experiencers, or J.J. Abrams needs researchers and goes to HDA and writes to me and says, can you hook me up with Richard Dolan and Nick Pope and Paul Hynek and Steve Bassett? So I'd say within the next 5, even 10 years. And if you want to talk about disclosure, that's another thing. I don't think disclosure is going to come through a president, a pope, or a king anytime soon.
I agree with you. Obviously you don't have to disclose names here, but have, let's say, some well-known Hollywood performers come to the HDA looking for information or support. They have, maybe this isn't been publicized, but they've had an experience, a UFO ET experience, and they were desperate to share with someone, to confide in someone. Is that happening?
I would say the prime example of that is Thomas Jane.
Thomas Jane, yeah. Others I meant.
Thomas Jane never came forward in public ever about his experience until we created the HDA. And he gave a lecture at one of our events last year, and he said, "I've never told this story in public." Well, Thomas Jane's a movie star.
Yeah,
he's a legitimate movie star. Another person we have who's a member, Dee Wallace. Everyone loves her. She was the mom from E.T. The actress Dee Wallace, mom from E.T. She's a good friend of mine. She came to Contact in the Desert last year. She's had some UFO sightings, and she's very big on consciousness, which I guess we're now calling psionics. She has had, conscious contact with some UFO craft during the course of her life. One of our founding members was Shirley MacLaine, who is friends with Stephen Bassett. I've not met Shirley. Actually, I did. I met Shirley MacLaine at a red carpet event once in Hollywood 30 years ago. But she's like the godmother of disclosure in a way. She's been talking about this topic since, the 50s, 60s, I think, probably. Yeah. We have an actress named Dania Ramirez, who is, if you look her up, a very beautiful actress. She's done a lot of TV work. She's had experiences that she's spoken about. Michael Ian Black, he's on the CNN show called Have I Got News for You? He had a profound UFO sighting in high school. So to answer your question, the quote unquote, the big names, the celebrities, it's very, very slow process, Richard. It's very slow. I have reached out to Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell and Demi Lovato and Katy Perry and all anytime a celebrity reveals like Goldie Hawn
Hmm.
last year came out with a story when she was like 21. She was in a car, I guess in a boyfriend's car. She was asleep or something. And she woke up and an ET had a finger and it was touching her head through the window of the car.
Wow.
And she said it was a godlike experience. She experienced God when that happened. That just came out last year. Goldie Hawn, major,
Mm.
major star. Well, I wrote to her, people. It's always another one is Fran Drescher. Fran Drescher's had all kinds of ET experiences. Thank you very much. They appreciate, they wish you well. Good luck with your group. They're busy. They're busy.
Mm.
So I, as a Hollywood guy, as soon as I sniff any major celebrity that has a story, I am trying to get them into the HDA, but it's been very slow, to be honest.
Have you faced pushback from anyone who prefer that these conversations stay in the shadows?
The only pushback I've gotten, I'm not going to say his name because he's very well known. He's a very well known filmmaker, producer, director in this field. When Stephen and I joined this, I reached out to him very early on, and he said, Dan, I don't need you or Steve Bassett to validate my work. And you're putting together all my competitors. I don't need more competitors. I need less competitors.
Mm.
I want nothing to do with the HDA. Well, this is a you would know the name instantly. Is a major person in this field, and Stephen and I were shocked. We're like, we're neutral. HTA is a neutral. It's like joining SAG-AFTRA if you're an actor. So,
Mm.
you want to be in SAG-AFTRA. If you're a UAP person in the media, what do you have to lose by being a member of HTA? You expand your network exponentially. This one guy, I've asked him twice in the last 2 years. Absolutely not. He doesn't see it the right way. That's the only pushback that we've gotten, other than the fact that every major celebrity with a ET story, I write to all their publicists because I'm a publicist. And that's the way to go. You don't go to their agent or their manager or their lawyer. Why? Agents, managers, lawyers want money. They are representing their actor clients' income. A publicist works with their clients to expand their profile out either through the media or through live promotions or social events and things. And I'm a publicist, and people know me in Hollywood. So I write. I usually get a response. They'll say, "Dan, thank you, good luck, but Goldie Hawn can't join your group right now." Well, what does that mean? All we would need would be her photo and her bio, literally, and put it on the website, and then invite her to things. That's all it means to be a
Hmm.
member. She's too busy. Goldie Hawn's too busy to join a group. Why? Okay, they're thinking, okay, this guy wants his group endorsed by, Spielberg and Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell and these major people. Well, that's partially true too. We're talking to Matthew Modine, by the way.
Ah.
I think he's going to join. He works with Ron James on his films. Matthew Modine.
Do you think Hollywood has been used, either intentionally or otherwise, to prepare us for full contact through, let's call it soft disclosure?
I have a client friend named Ella LeBain. I think
Oh,
you've
yes,
interviewed her recently.
several times. Mm.
Okay, so she's a client and a friend of mine, PR client. She has told me that, Star Trek, Star Wars, even I Dream of Jeannie.
Mm.
One of her lectures is on that topic. It's how think about I Dream of Jeannie, right? You'd never think about that in this field. An astronaut goes up in space, right? Comes back to Earth, finds a genie. Well, what's a genie? A genie's an extraterrestrial character, really. A genie
Hmm.
is not human.
Right.
Ella says that there have been very soft, gentle little ripples, Star Trek, Star Wars in particular, of, hey, there could be life elsewhere, so, let's get used to it. Let's not be shocked by it. I think the government I think the DoD and certainly Alan Hynek gave Spielberg insights for Close Encounters. I think that certain people get some insights. Yeah, to answer your question, I think it's a very, very painfully slow rollout. I think until they land on the White House lawn or Times Square, or like in my book, after they came, I have them landing at Dodger Stadium. Until that happens, I have strong feelings that Trump or the new Pope or the King or Netanyahu or Putin, what do they have to gain by telling the world, hey, we've known about this since 1947, the crash at Roswell, that was extraterrestrial. We had bodies, we had a little alien who survived. We know all about it. We felt the time had come to tell you. What is their gain? What is their gain? They don't have any gain. There is no gain.
A legacy.
So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Roswell happened first week of July 1947, the crash. The story, the press release, and I'm a publicist. I've done probably 10,000 press releases. I often, Richard, I think about Walter Hout, the poor bastard. The poor It would have been me. Like if in my past life, I would have been Walter Hout, right? Walter, we need a press release. We've recovered a flying disc, read a press release, send it to the media. Fine. He did. Blanchard, his boss, told him to do that. He didn't make this up. He went, and in those days, this is called hand planting. It's a long lost art in PR. Hand planting, you take a piece of paper, you take a press release on a piece of paper, and you drive in your car. And he went to the two Roswell radio stations and the two newspapers, and he literally handed four people his little press release. The Army recovers flying disc. Okay. Well, as we know, that story ran all over the world. It got picked up by AP and UPI, the two big wire services at the time. It ran all over the world. Okay, so now it's July 8th. You're you're Harry Truman, right? You're the president. Your butler, Mr. President. Here's your breakfast. Here's your coffee. Here's your morning. Here's your morning paper. You're Harry Truman. You see, Army recovers flying disc. You're Harry Truman. Well, imagine his head exploding. Who the F did what? Who on earth? How dare I'm the president? And what did they do? His head had to have exploded. So in my imagination, he called poor Walter Hout, or someone did. Who the F do you think you are? How dare you? I'm the president. You didn't run this by me. What are you, insane? This has to be retracted immediately. Now, I've been a publicist for 41 years. The worst thing that can ever happen, Richard, in PR, is your client calls you the day after your press release goes out and says, oh, it was wrong. I made a mistake. Pull it. Pull it. How do you unring a bell, right? How do you put toothpaste back in the tube? Okay, well, you can't. So what did they do at Roswell? They sent poor Jesse Marcel to Texas with Roger Ramey, and they had aluminum foil, sticks, twigs, and berries. Reynolds wrap. Steve Bassett said it was aluminum foil that covered Roger Ramey's fish. I think that's the funniest thing he's ever said. Weather balloon, weather balloon. Weather balloon. Oh, and then now the media in 1947. This is before the JFK assassination, before Watergate, before our lovely president who's in office now, who never lies ever about anything ever. In those days, the media respected certainly the military and the government. So, a weather balloon, tee hee hee. Oh, these poor bastards, they really blew that one. That ran all over the world. And then, as we know, in the 70s, Stanton Friedman got wind of what had really happened. God bless him. And he said, wait a minute, some of these guys are still alive. And I'm sure he spoke to Jesse Marcel. I'm friends with Jesse Marcel III. Have you ever interviewed him?
No, I interviewed his father, though, Jesse Jr.
Okay, all right. So Jesse Marcel III is a member of my group, and he and I became friends. I interviewed him. He told me a story, Richard. I think he said he was 8, and he's in a canoe or a little rowboat with his grandfather, and they're fishing. And Jesse Marcel tells Jesse Marcel, his grandson, we recovered extraterrestrial beings, and it was a spaceship from outer space. what grandfather is going to lie to his 8-year-old kid? And the answer is no, none. No,
Right.
no grandfathers would do that. So anyway, I'm losing track of where we're going with this. But so okay, all right. So Harry Truman created the truth embargo on July 8, 1947. That's day one of the truth embargo. It's going to this day till today. And I've had long talks with Stephen Bassett. I said, Stephen, could you imagine if Truman had said, instead of, do the bogus press conference, if Truman had said, don't do anything else, I'm flying out right now. I want to see this craft. I want to see these bodies. If Truman had gone to Roswell, seen these things, and then gone on, I don't think they had TV then, if he had gone on national radio and said, people of the world, I have something extraordinary to tell you. This really happened. We have a craft from another planet. We have little beings from another planet, and we'll keep you posted. Had that happened all the last almost 80 years, think how different our world might have been.
Yeah.
So if I had time, I would write a screenplay based on the alternate version of UAPs and Truman. But Truman blew it on day one, man. I've never forgiven Truman for that.
That is a great concept for a book. Let's talk Contact in the Desert, which just wrapped up June 2nd,
Sure.
couple of weeks ago. Talk to me about the highlights. Any whispers of high-level insiders breaking ranks?
Contact in the Desert was May 29th through June 2nd. It's at a beautiful resort near Palm Springs. The resort's called the Renaissance Hotel. Have you ever been, Richard?
I have not. I have not. I would love to go there.
If you want to go, yeah, you really should. It's really quite remarkable. It's a 5-day event. This year we had 2,300 people, so that we had a very, very good turnout. I'm the director of public relations and media for Contact, so of course I'm going to boast about it a little bit. Ross Coulthart was there. What a lovely guy! I got to meet him. I spent a little time with him. Lovely guy, and he's so what's the word, humble. Okay, Ross Coulthart at Contact in the Desert would be like John Lennon walking through a rock and roll convention, right? He's become iconic. People are like, Mr. Coulthart, thank you for your interviews. He broke David Grush, this guy. He broke the David Grush story. So he's become iconic. So he's up there and he gave a lecture. And one of the things he said was, I'm an Australian journalist. He goes, in Australia, journalists are looked upon like something you stepped in with your shoe. That's what he said. That's what he said. And he goes, when I come to America, you lovely people treat me with kindness and respect. And he goes, I'm not used to it. He goes, it's really very humbling. Such a lovely man he was. CNN had a crew there at Contact, first time ever. CNN was there. I spent time with them. They did a piece that's going to run this week. I did not see Josh Gates do his keynote speaker. He's the host of the show Expedition Unknown. That was a highlight. A big event this year was Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell was at Contact. Are you familiar with her?
Dr. Powell, no.
Have you heard of the telepathy tapes?
No.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think so. I don't think so.
Okay. She might be someone you might want to interview, I would think. The telepathy tapes are a documentary series. I think it's a 9-part documentary series on streaming. It's so popular, it got better ratings than Joe Rogan, apparently. Somebody said that.
Wow.
Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell is a very brilliant psychiatrist. She's based at Harvard. Down the hall, her office is down the hall from where John Mack's office used to be. So I think that's pretty cool. She has been working for a few years with highly autistic children who are nonverbal. But these are highly autistic children have telepathy with their parents, usually with their mothers, to the point of the mother can be thinking about something or looking at something or doing numbers or something, and the child would write whatever the mother was thinking about, or the child would point to whatever the mother was thinking about, the child would point to it concurrently. So Diane Hennessy Powell has essentially proven that telepathy is a real phenomenon. It really can happen. That's number one. In my personal life, I've had a few telepathic moments. It's either I've heard a sentence in my ear that something was going to happen and it did, or I've seen I've seen words in my forehead a few times. I've seen words, actual English letters in my head of something that was about to happen, and it did. So why is telepathy interesting? Many ET experiencers say, you know this, that they have, when they're in interacting with extraterrestrial life or NHI beings, it's telepathic. And the aliens don't seem to be talking with their with their lips like you and I are talking right now.
Right.
So if telepathy is real, and these experiencers are saying that we communicate with other life forms with telepathy, 2 + 2 = 4. Telepathy. So Diane Powell has essentially proven, and she did several events at Contact, including I didn't see it, but she did a live event with a child and his mother, and the child and the mom, they were like, telepathy live,
Wow.
like Bruce Springsteen live, telepathy live, and they did it. They did it live on stage. I think that was probably the most talked about event that happened. And then, of course, there's all kinds of disclosure, both sides of the aisle. Steve Bassett is, one of my very best friends. He feels very, very strongly, very strongly. Donald Trump will be the disclosure president. It will happen this year. Danny Sheehan thinks it'll happen in the next 2 years. Richard Dolan isn't sure it will happen at all. I've had long talks with Ron James and Ron Janix, and the three of us don't think it's ever going to happen through a public officer or a head of state. And getting back to HTA, I think that we the people, this is my mantra lately, Richard. We the people are disclosure. We the people. I've had four UFO sightings. 2 of them were interactive. So I'm not a contactee, but I think I'm an experiencer. I think I'm an experiencer. 2 of them were interactive. We, the people, need to tell our stories, and at some point that it'll be a tipping point when so many people will have so many stories. And here's another problem. Everybody today has a cell phone. Everyone on the planet Earth. My 91-year-old mother has a cell phone. Everyone on the planet. Everyone can take pictures of videos of UAP and lights in the sky. Why is that a problem today? AI. You don't know you don't know what's real. If I went outside tonight when I walk my dog 4 times a day. And at night at 10 o'clock at night, I always look up in the sky when I'm walking my dog thinking, it would be so cool to just see a UFO right now. Just right now, I'd really love to see it. It'd be so cool. I would tell my friends. If I took a video of that with my phone and showed it to everyone on the planet Earth, oh, it's fake news, it's AI, it's visual effects. Who is this guy? He's a Hollywood publicist. He's promoting his HDA group. It's all BS. It's nonsense. So there's so many things are stacked against those of us working on the disclosure movement. It's fighting. We're ants pushing up a rock like Sisyphus or whatever his name was.
Yep. Staying with Contact in the Desert for a moment, George Norrie of Coast to Coast, my colleague at Coast to Coast, what has his presence meant at Coast to Coast in terms of shaping the disclosure conversation?
He's been there 3 years in a row. He's sort of like this grandfatherly, iconic type. I only said hi to him briefly this year. Last year I spoke to him at length. This year I just saw him very briefly. He's a media icon. There's only a few. There are very few George Norries or Russ Coultharts or Ralph Blumenthal's, there's or Micah and Chrissy from the Debrief. I mean, there's very few media people who have risen to the top of the cream, who are giving a platform and a voice to people with stories and with news about disclosure. So he's a very popular character. He did an event this year, second time in a row, with George Knapp. It's
Mm-hmm.
called the George and George Live. They called it George and George Live. Always a lot of people in that room. He draws a big crowd. He's the kind of he's like the great uncle you want to sit and have a cigar and a brandy and just sit down and talk with. He's a lovely man. I don't know him well, but he's a very popular character there.
Did you leave Contact this year more hopeful or frustrated about the pace of disclosure?
That's such a good question. I've become in the last 2 weeks, I've become pretty depressed. I've actually become kind of depressed about the status of disclosure. Because why? Front page New York Times article years ago, the three Navy videos,
Mm-hmm.
David Grush, Lou Elizondo, best-selling, New York Times best-selling book, Lou Elizondo. This guy, Eric Davis, a month ago, telling Representative Luna there's 4 different races of extraterrestrials in Congress, live at a hearing. Contact in the Desert, 2,300 people. There's no, it's all like there's effort and so much effort and so much proof and so many stories, so many experiencers. That's one thing I'll tell you at Contact for me personally. I had a booth for the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance booth. Countless people came up to me. Can I tell you my story? Can I tell you my story? Right? Experiencers, countless experiencers. Where is this all going? Donald Trump's not, he's thinking about, am I going to bomb Iran? He's not thinking, yeah, I should tell the world there's aliens. What's his rush to do that? What gain does he have? I don't see any gain that he would have to do that. The new pope, people have said, well, the new pope's from America. He's going to disclose. That would be cool. I think if it came from a pope, actually, I do think if it came from the pope, I think that would be the most credible leader right now. I can't think of anyone more credible on the planet Earth. Maybe it was Paul McCartney or Bruce Springsteen, some, like really, or some like Tom Hanks, some beloved character. If it came from them, but I've been kind of bummed, man. Even my mother says, Danny, what's going on with your aliens and your disclosure? I said, Mom, nothing, nothing. People like you, Richard, give people like me and countless others a platform. Where is it going? It's poor Steve Bassett, 30 years. The guy's 78 years old. He's 10 years older than me. Yeah, I call him my big brother. This guy's put 30 years of his life every single day, moving disclosure, moving forward. I hope it happens in his lifetime. A dear friend of ours, Earl Grey Anderson. Did you know that name?
No, no. Earl
Earl,
Anderson.
Gr- Earl Grey Anderson. He was a lifelong experiencer. He was the head of MUFON Southern California chapter
Hmm.
for the last 3 years. Lovely, lovely man. He and I became very good friends. Great, great guy. Nicest guy in the world. He died April 27th. He had a bad death. He died April 27th. He was only 66. Paul Hynek, we had an event. We had an HD event the day of his death. It was very hard for me to do because I was crying. But Earl died that day, and Paul Hynek said, Earl Grey Anderson was a warrior for the truth. His whole life, he was a warrior for his truth and for the truth. And then in the car driving home with Stephen Bassett, Stephen said, Dan, it's such a shame. Earl didn't live to see disclosure. And I thought, yeah, I mean, the man spent 40 years telling the world about his experiences. His mother, he was an incredible guy, Richard. His mother worked for the Howard Hughes, the man.
Wow.
And was an assistant to the Howard Hughes. And Earl had two great stories. One is In the 50s, his mom went in an underground bunker in the middle of America somewhere in a desert. His mom and Howard Hughes walked up to a door. There's just a door above a mesa somewhere in a desert, and they open the door and they get in an elevator and they go down. I think he said 18 stories under the ground to a city. There's a city under the ground that Howard Hughes was involved with, and extraterrestrials are down there working with American scientists on reverse engineering. The mom told Earl it was so big, there was a beauty parlor where she got her hair done.
Wow.
It was a city. Okay, so that's one. This other story is very funny. When Earl was 5 years old one day, he's eating cereal for breakfast. His mom goes, Earl, just so you know, mommy is involved with extraterrestrial beings from other worlds. And don't ever let anyone tell you that they don't exist because mommy knows that they exist. But you can't tell anyone. So Earl goes to school. He's 5 years old. What does he do that day? He tells everyone.
Of course.
My mommy works with aliens. He told everyone. The mom gets a call from work. I think she worked at Hughes Aircraft, which used to be in Culver City when Howard Hughes was alive. So she had to go pick him up and get him from the principal's office. And the principal goes, Mrs. Anderson, your son is telling people that there's aliens. We can't have that here. We don't like liars.
Wow.
So they drive home, and the mom says to Earl in the car, Earl, mommy could go to jail. Mommy could go to jail for what you told your friends. Don't ever tell anyone that again, ever. Mommy can go to jail. So that's who Earl was, and he passed away. So the bigger point was someone like that at that level didn't live to see disclosure. That's how disheartening it is.
We have now a new news service. Tell us about WOW, Signal News Service.
Okay, thank you very much for asking me. So as a Hollywood publicist for over 40 years, anything I do, I come to think of how can, whatever activity I'm involved with, how can this be promoted and marketed and branded so that others can join or be involved or become aware of what I'm involved with. So when I met Steve Bassett 2 years ago, the first thing I thought, Richard, was there's no one single news source for ufologists. There's no, the New York Times once in a blue moon does an article, or the Debrief. Okay, they do, but they do like opinion pieces and scientific studies and things. There's no source where you can go to get trusted news from ufologists / where ufologists can send their news and have it published. So that was my PR brain. So for 2 years, I had that in my head. I got to create something. And then originally it was going to be called disclosurewire.com. Steven said it should be Disclosure Wire. I looked into it. Someone else owns that URL. But then I was reading a book about the WOW signal, which happened in 1977.
Right.
A radio astronomer named Jerry Ehman, Ehman, at Ohio State University. He was doing a study of the sky with his giant telescope. He got a 72-second long signal that was your people know this. It was an anomaly from outer space.
Yeah.
The computer printed out its 6, 7, or 8 digits, like letters and numbers. He circled the printout with a red pen. He circled it, and he wrote "wow!" exclamation point next to it. That's what the WOW signal, real WOW signal was. I read a book and that WOW signal was in there. I thought, as a publicist, my entertainment side, I'm like, what a great name for a newsletter. What a great name for a newsletter for ufologists. The WOW signal. It's got everything. It's got it all. It sounds like it's exciting and fun and important, right? All at the same time. So I went to my daughter. I said, I want to create the WOW signal. She created the logo, God bless her, and the website. We launched in mid-March. So if you want to go, check out thewowsignal.news, thewowsignal.news. In fact, it's the first .news URL I've ever heard of. I thought .news was the way to go, right? Every Monday, we post news stories and photos. Every week we have the UAP photo of the week. We have news stories, press releases that are submitted, UAP photos of the week, and guest columns about different topics. In fact, Richard, if you'd ever like to write a column about anything of interest to you, send it to me and it will run on the WOW signal.
Fantastic.
Steve Bassett does one. I do one. Ron James does one. A guy named Costa does one. He runs the People's Disclosure Movement out of the Bay Area. We have other people that write guest columns. Nick Pope did a piece for us. It's becoming a thing. So we only launched in March. We're 3 months old. We have great news. Bob Salas did a rebuttal to the Wall Street Journal that ran on the WOW signal. Here's the killer. This one's great. In early March, on the WOW signal, we wrote a story about, and I'm going to forget his name, something Rogers. He's a scientist with NASA. He was a doctor with NASA. He came out as a whistleblower about ET life at the very start of May this year. We ran his coming out press release on the WOW signal.
Oh.
I met him at Contact in the Desert. He said he got requests for interviews from all over the world because his article was on the WOW signal. I thought, wow, that's the greatest validation of my little idea that I ever heard. He got requests from all over the world. So it's a thing now. It's a thing. The wowsignal.news, we present news. We offer experiencers the chance to write articles about their experiences. People send in photos. And I'm the editor-publisher. That's a lot of fun, man. That's been a lot of fun for me.
All right. That was Dr. Gregory Rogers, former NASA chief flight surgeon and Air Force major, claiming to have seen footage of a 20-foot wide flying saucer with a U.S. Air Force logo in a military hangar back in 1992. All right. Again, give us the website for the WOW signal.
Right, exactly right. That's who he was. And I met him at Contact, nice guy. The wowsignal.news.
All right. Your sci-fi novel, After They Came, now available as an audio book. Just give us, blends fiction and prophecy. Just tell us a little bit more about it, and then how do we get the audio version?
Okay, great. Thank you for asking. So After They Came, I originally wrote in 2017, and the way I wrote that book was it was a paranormal experience, and I'll do this very quickly. In March 1970, I was 13 years old. I was in a car with my father. He's driving me home from school. Daylight, New Jersey. A huge silver V Victor craft hovered above my father's car. Daylight at the time. I saw it through the windshield. I looked up. I said, "Dad, stop the car. Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. Stop the car." We stopped the car. We got out. We stood in front of the car. I'm jumping up and down. I'm 13. "Dad, look, it's a UFO. Dad, it's Star Trek. It's Star Trek. Dad, look." And my father, Richard, looked at it like couldn't care less, bored to tears. He'd seen it 500 times. No interest. That always stayed with me. I'm like, am I seeing the same thing that my father's seeing? Because, Richard, if it was you and I, we'd be dancing, right? We'd be high-fiving, we'd be breaking piñatas. Like, oh, my God. My father looked at it like he was looking at a head of lettuce at the supermarket. Couldn't care less. Okay, we go home. I run into the house, rotary phone, 1970. I called the Asbury Park Press, my hometown newspaper. "Hi, my name is Danny. I just saw a UFO with my father." The lady said, "Sonny, I can't talk to you now. We're getting hundreds of phone calls about this. I gotta go." Wow. She hung up on me. No article ever ran in the paper. Okay. I forgot that happened for 47 years.
Wow.
That event, now think about that. That was a major, major sighting. This thing was huge, right? This V, silent, no smoke, no propeller, silent, hovering about my father's car. In daylight, no less? Okay, 47 years, completely forgot that. Never thought about that had happened, not once. What happened 47 years later? My father died. My father died 2017 in Florida. He had a bad death. 3 days after he died, I'm here in LA. I'll go to a deli to get a pastrami sandwich in honor of my father. because he loved pastrami sandwiches. I'm sitting at the desk, and I believe I told you this story in the past. I'm sitting there. I ordered my sandwich, and I'm just thinking about how much I'm going to miss my father. 3 days after he died, a beam of light hit me in the head from the ceiling, from the sky, hard. Hit me in the head, hard. And through my eyes was projected in the air in front of me at the deli the 1970 UFO sighting as a home movie, full color hologram 3D with audio. It played in the air at the deli 47 years after the fact.
Wow.
Stephen Bassett said, Dan, that's probably the greatest story I've ever heard. It played. Now, it wasn't a memory. It wasn't from my point of view. I was in the movie. It's my father's car, me and my dad, and the V. And it looks like God was the cameraman. God was standing in front of my father's car, like Cecil B. DeMille, right? I was in the movie. So it wasn't from my point of people said it's a memory. It wasn't a memory. I was in it.
Yeah.
I watched the whole thing just as I had described it to you. This time my father looked down at me, winked at me, and then he said, "Come on, kid, let's go home." Okay. Then it dissipated. That dissipated. Now what happens? I'm clairaudient. Every 10 years or so, I got a sentence in my ear. I heard, "Get a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen." I asked the waiter for a pen, put it in my hand. There's a paper placemat on the table, and I swear on my daughter, this is a true story. My hand did automatic writing. My hand wrote, "Write a book about benevolent aliens." Then my hand wrote, "Lead character's father knew about UFOs." Then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C. Then my hand stopped moving. So now I'm holding this paper, Richard. I'm shaking. My heart's beating. I'm like, what's happening here? I just want a sandwich. And I came up with after they came. ATC. I came home I got my sandwich, inhaled it, went home, and then for every day for 1 year, I wrote after they came. So that's how the book came to be. It was given to me. The book was given to me. Now, Stephen thinks it was an ET experience I had. I like to think it was my father from heaven. It's or God himself. I mean, those are the only three options because I told you the story and I swear that's a true story. So, regardless, I wrote the story. The story is two benevolent aliens come to Earth in the near future from the Pleiades to save mankind, solve all of mankind's problems. 7-foot tall man and woman with the white hair, the pale skin, the blue eyes. In the movie, it would be Brad Pitt and it would be Blake Lively. The two most beautiful blonde humans probably on the earth. It would be those would be the characters. They come to Earth. On page 1, the lead character is the schmucky guy. His name is Jonathan Tuckerman. Everything's going wrong for him in his life. It's his 70th birthday. He hates his life. He's bankrupt. He hasn't talked to his kids in years. Nobody loves him. He's alone in life. His business is ruined. He's drowning himself in the Pacific Ocean on his 70th birthday. That's how the book starts. That's page 1. He's drowning in the ocean on his birthday. As he's drowning, this huge craft comes out of the Pacific, beams him on board, slowly flies across LA, goes to Dodger Stadium. They beam down, the two creatures and this guy. And now, by that point, all the media and all the police and everybody are there at Dodger Stadium. And aliens say, "People of the world," and it's telepathic. "We're here. We love you. We felt tonight was the night to prove ourselves to you. We love mankind. We came to solve all of your problems, but we will only work through this guy." Now, this guy is like laying there. He was just dead from drowning. They brought him back to life. We have a relationship with this guy. This is our guy. You have things to say to us? Go to this guy. We will only work through him. The aliens get on board. The craft leaves. Now, this guy has no clue what's happening. So all the media and all the police and all the aim in the military, they're like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "What? I no, he's no idea." That's the start of the book. You have to read the book to see where it goes. This book was inspired by the events that I had with my father. I wrote it in his, I wrote it, I wrote it right after the week he died is when I started writing it. The book is dedicated to my father. Now, who was my father is kind of part of, the audiobook. You can get the
Yeah.
audiobook or the print book or the ebook. They're all on Amazon, all three. After they came, Dan Harari. Print book, ebook, audiobook. The audiobook took me a year and 4 months, Richard, to record. I will never do that. I will never do that again. I had a guy in Hollywood, a very good engineer, and I could only get him when he had free time. He donated his service as a friend. It took forever and ever and ever, so I will never do that again. Okay, who is my father? Now, after my father died, now my father worked at Fort Monmouth Army Base in New Jersey for 45 years, 1951 to 1996. He was a physicist and an electronics engineer. My father was a genius. He was not in the military. He was a civilian scientist, okay? We all knew my father worked on guided missiles and radar systems. That's all he ever said. He never gave us any details about anything ever. My father, when I was a little kid, I said, Dad, what do you do for a living? He goes, I help America win the Cold War. That's all he ever said, right?
Great answer.
After he died, I called my mother. I go, Mom, and my mother's still alive. Did Dad ever talk about aliens or UFOs, all the years that they were together? She said in the early 60s, they took your father deep into the vault at Fort Monmouth Army Base, and they showed him something top secret. He came home from work. My mother said he was pale and shaking and very nervous and very upset. My mother said, honey, what's wrong? My father looked at my mother and said, I saw something today in the vault. I can never tell you or anyone about it as long as I live. And then she said he walked down the hall, and my mother goes, Danny, your father was never the same after that day. Now, this is very interesting, Richard. I'm reading this book right now. McCarthy, Monmouth, and the Deep State. My father worked at Fort Monmouth. In this book, now we'll run out, we don't have enough time, but in this book, Joe McCarthy was grilling different people at the Army about whether communists had infiltrated Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, where my father worked. You know Julius and Ethel Rosenberg? You know that famous case?
Oh, yes.
Julius Rosenberg worked where my father worked.
Ah, wow.
But he was there in the 40s. My dad came in the 50s. Okay. In this book, it essentially, in a roundabout way, proves that where my father worked, they were involved with radar and drone technologies in conjunction with Project Blue Book and with UFO research. Now, how about that? That's in this book.
Wow. Well,
My father knew, the story is, whatever that V was that we saw, my father knew what that thing was.
so much for people to follow up on. We have the documentary Inside Hollywood, Aliens, UFOs, and the Quest for Disclosure. We have the audio version of your book, After They Came, and we have the Wow Signal News Service. I'll put all the links in the episode description when we publish the podcast. Dan, great catching up with you, and so much to catch up on. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much. I always really enjoy talking to you. If you'd like to join the HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org, please go there, and there's a join button. Just follow the steps on the join button. Sorry. Richard, you should be a member. I just need your bio and your photo. I'd love to put you up there. And if you want to write a guest column for WOW, please do.
Yes to both. I'll send the particulars your way very soon. Thank you so much, Dan.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. All the best.
Bye-bye.
A new Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.